Thank you very much for that kind introduction. I'm very honored and pleased to be here. I've seen many old friends and met some new ones, so I'm just very glad to be among you today. This summer, I read a number of books to prepare for teaching a doctoral seminar on contemporary issues in the study of religions. Each offering of this seminar features 6 recent books in the study of religions, books that raise significant and often troubling issues. This summer's books included Hans Kippenberg's Rediscovering Religious History in the Modern Age and Daniel Dubuisson's The Western Construction of Religion. Kippenberg offers a Western European intellectual history of the evolution of religious history, or more properly, the study of religious history, as inextricably embedded in shifting concerns and conflicts, particularly about the virtues and dangers of modern civilization in the 3 rather different contexts of Germany, France, and Great Britain. His account lifts up contextual concerns and motivations behind some of the greatest scholars of religious history. As Kippenberg would have it, religious history has always been in the service of addressing the ills of European cultures as they struggled with the changes wrought by industrial society. His account is fascinating, but it is troubling in the sense that it highlights the particular and even parochial concerns that shaped various debates and vast generalizations about the role of religion in the history of humanity. Dubuisson is, if anything, even more unsettling, for he argues that religion as a term is simply untenable for the study of religions, plural, since the origin of the term was a co-optation of a Latin term, religio, by early Christians writing in Latin to mean something that could never include all religions. Let's hear Dubuisson in his own words. This religio, as it was rethought by Christian thinkers, was defined from the very outset by its claim to difference, by its opposition to all other cults, and by its separation from all that was not it, as it defined itself in its fierce movement of self-foundation. True religion, since the only religion of the true God, is opposed to false religions that address false gods or impious demons. In other words, Dubuisson claims that the origin of the term religion was the act of Christianity defining itself over against all other possibilities as the only religion, the true religion that denies the name of religion to all others. Yikes, and here I, like many of you, thought I was a scholar of religions. But I should not have been surprised. As far back as 1982, the ever-provocative and unsettling Jonathan Z. Smith had boldly declared in Imagining Religion, "There is no data for religion. Religion is solely the creation of the scholar's study." His point being that the category is a product of Western history imposed from the outside on other traditions and cultures. And John King famously wrote in Orientalism and Religion, the a priori and largely uncontested status of the category of religion is reflected in the fact that in the West, it is thought to be simply common sense that all cultures have religions and that those religions have been important constitutive factors in the development of those cultures. Debates about the precise denotation of the term religion, whether there's an essence to religion or whether it's a polytheistic concept, do not question the fundamental assumption that there are things called religions that are easily identifiable and classified in terms of specific names such as Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Taoism, etc. We know a religion when we see one. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it must be a duck or a religion. But what exactly are we looking for or recognizing when we see a religion? Beneath the unsettling surface of the parochialism of Western categories and the undeniable history of Christian exclusivity lies a deeper issue raised in both Kippenberg's and Dubuisson's books. As each surveyed the history of the study of religions, it became all too apparent that there were contradictory and conflicting ideas posed by the stream of famous shapers of the field about the critical aspects or facets of what various scholars deemed religion to be. Both books provided a concise retelling of the history and development of the history of religions, at least in the West, that made all too clear how little consensus there was about religion as an object of study. Was religion an irrational force opposed to reason? Hobbes. An individual sensibility or intuition? Schleiermacher. The basis of morals and ethics? Kant and Rousseau in different ways. An experience of the holy or transcendent? Otto. Mysticism as opposed to instrumental rationality? Troeltsch. A prehistorical structure of mind? Vanderloo. Primitive reasoning or animism? Tyler. The foundation of social structures? Durkheim. A methodical conduct of life which shapes economic behaviors? Weber. A feeling? The Romantics. Or a secret life force capturing the invisible? James. It does not take profound thought or extended thought to realize that these definitions or understandings of religion are profoundly different, if not outright contradictory. And one need only attend a meeting of the American Academy of Religion to marvel and wonder how in the world all those different groups and interests belong under the single tent of religion. Now, I would be the first to concede that scholars in any academic discipline can, and indeed should, argue rigorously about the stipulating definitions and multiple implications of their object of study, be it culture, truth, or education. Many of our highly wrought distinctions and disagreements about our objects of study hold little or no interest to the layperson. But the term religion, or its many synonyms, or substitutes, faith, theology, tradition, Christianity, or any other single religion, gives rise to three significant levels of confusion that transcend the Guild's internal debates over the object of our study. First, while as educators, we have made a commitment to facilitating understanding rather than merely imparting facts a la the banking model so famously decried by Paulo Freire, we haven't thought very deeply about the pre-assumptions or interests that the students bring to the task of understanding religion or any particular religion. If a student assumes that religion is about feelings, and we are teaching religion as an institutionalized tradition of texts and traditions and doctrines, it will be hard for that student to connect the understanding she may gain from the course to her own sense of religion. Where are the feelings? The best she will be able to do is parrot back the points of the course, as in the banking model. The course's understanding will not connect to her own need for understanding religion or her own faith tradition. Second, we teach religion, or a particular religion, either through as though the term were obvious, or we provide a stipulative definition and assume that our students will accept it and use it clearly and consistently. At base, and this thought haunts me at times, is not an instructor's stipulative definition, not one constructed by the class, a version of the banking model approach. Third, I find myself teaching religion, or a particular tradition, with an inappropriate narrow sense of what the students must learn. That is, how they will be called upon to use their understanding in their lives after they leave my class. My excessively narrow vision impoverishes my plans for the course and fails to alert students to the full implications of engaging the course issues, and thus impoverishes their learning outcomes as well. Let me speak in more detail about these 3 points, and then propose a thought or conversation exercise to stimulate us to imagine ways in which we might enrich our approaches to teaching religion or any particular religion. First, engaging students in understanding religion or a particular religion. In my book, Understanding Other Religious Worlds, I sided with John Dewey, Ed Farley, and many, many others to argue that teaching aims at paideia, formation of the whole person, through internalized understanding, a hermeneutical process, rather than to simply impart information from teacher as expert to student as tabula rasa. In the book, I sought to entangle some of the many threads of the difficult task of understanding religious difference, combining pedagogical and hermeneutical models to articulate 5 threads. Maureen briefly alluded to these. 1, encountering significant difference. 2, one's initial response from one's own location. 3, multiple exchanges of dialogue and conversation. 4, developing relationships or living out understanding. And 5, internalizing the learning process as a usable skill or art. And these are not meant to be in order, although they're easier to hear in that particular order. A major premise of the book was that by becoming aware of this complex process and its many dimensions, both teacher and learners could become more attuned to the many facets of the learning process. In this presentation, I make a modest start on the process of unpacking the subject of our teaching, religion or any particular tradition, with the same motive as in my book, to make us as teachers more aware of the complexities of internalizing understanding or living out an understanding of religion or of any particular religion, and to assist us and our students to be more attuned to and adept in the learning process. In adhering to my commitment to internalize understanding, development of the person is the goal of the learning process, I'm parting ways to a certain extent with Stephen Prothero's Religious Literacy, What Every American Needs to Know and Doesn't. Prothero's book focuses on our lack of information, our ignorance of key terms and facets of religions that play an important role in our world. I agree that our ignorance of the facts of religions has unfortunate consequences, but I would articulate that concern as about expanding our vocabulary in order to engage more fluently in religious understandings that can lead to fuller understanding of other religions. I see the act of understanding as primary. Memorizing a list of terms that will neither stick in our mind nor be effective in engaging others unless we have also developed an internalized understanding through engaging actively in conversation about religion. The difference might be suggested by Wilfred Cantwell Smith's famous approach to teaching world religions at Harvard. Some of you may have been through this. Wilfred would hand out lists of terms that students must master for each of the religions, and then ask the students to work in teams to develop and teach one another what those terms meant. The collaborative detective work and mutual teaching ensured that the students were actively engaged in finding out what the terms meant, and then learning to use them in conversation with one another. So while I agree with Prothero's argument that religious literacy is important and significant for being a citizen in the world, in my mind, he has made the case for the importance of religious literacy, but has not yet articulated an effective pedagogical approach to achieving religious literacy. Now, assuming that many of you are in agreement with me on understanding is the aim of pedagogy, and I'm sure I'll hear about it if some of you are not, what I want to reflect on today are the complexities of understanding religion or any given religion because of the many aspects and contradictory takes, I deliberately used the vernacular there, takes on religion or any particular religion as an object of learning. If learning occurs through a hermeneutical process rooted in conversation with texts broadly conceived and persons, Then hermeneutical theory reminds us that the student, the learner, brings some pre-assumptions and prejudgments to the learning process. She already has some assumptions about religion, or any given religion is, and those assumptions are very often not the same assumptions that the instructor brought to the syllabus. Thus, even if we are in a relatively homogeneous classroom, for instance, a Baptist professor teaching Baptist students about the Baptist tradition, the learning process is nonetheless confronted with the gap or distance between the horizons of the Baptist of each student and the Baptist intended by the instructor of the course. And to make it more complex, that distance and the particular reasons for it are often insufficiently explored and addressed, to the confusion and frustration of everyone. There are unacknowledged elephants in the classroom. Why these differences? Aren't they all Baptists? Yes, but it is not the general shared assumptions that will challenge successful internalized understanding in the course, but rather the subtler, insufficiently addressed differences. For each person in the class, what is central about being Baptist could be the hymns, a personal religious experience, the ethos in his or her family or his or her community, a certain style of praying or preaching, the way our particular congregation operates, the feelings that worship generates, a belief, a particular view of the Bible, or how his or her grandmother experienced the tradition. While it is important that each is shaped by congregational ties, what is important to each is shaped by congregational ties, personal religious history, family context, geographical or racial ethnic background, social class, the way the grandmother lived out the faith, or a particular experience. These different angles are real in the sense that they shape the Baptist identities and practices of each participant. Thus, the hermeneutical gap of understanding to be closed in that classroom is not just between the teacher who already knows the material and the students who don't. Can you hear the echo of the banking model there? But between the complex pre-assumptions about being Baptist that each of the participants brings to understanding and engaging the material that is the ostensible common ground of the course. Critical student-centered pedagogy has long reminded us that we need to know who the students are and what experiences, learning styles, and goals they bring into our classrooms. Over the years, I've had to resensitize myself to the implications, you'll get my age when you hear all of this, of the various forms of difference, gender, learning styles, cultural backgrounds, sexual orientation, social class, racial, ethnic backgrounds, and so forth. But all too often, I think about these issues in the abstract as creating Kantian ethical duties, the dreaded shoulds, and not in concrete terms of how the experiences contribute to and shape the learning experiences, both its possibilities and its challenges. For those who are teaching religion or a particular religion, these factors and other particular factors shape the very pre-assumptions the students bring about what religion or our tradition or theology fundamentally is, and what the students need to understand about it in their own lives, what they need to take away from the course. Ignoring those pre-assumptions and what shapes them fundamentally undermines the success of our courses. It follows that we should be advised to build into our teaching some way to make us and the students aware of these diverse takes on religion or any given religion being taught, and to attend to the fact that each participant is both bringing a different angle of vision and seeking a subtly different angle of understanding from the common conversation. This is the first of the pedagogical tasks we will address this afternoon. And this will seem to many of us like a time-consuming digression from the core learning tasks of the course, but it is in fact essential for bringing all the participants to a place where they can engage, in fact, the common ground. The pedagogical challenge is to design a way to surface these issues without losing sight of the main purpose of the course. Second, beyond the stipulative definition. Once we've grasped the different pre-assumptions that participants bring to the course, the problems with a stipulative definition offered by teacher or textbook become more apparent. Only those students whose pre-assumptions resonate with the assumptions of the stipulative definition will confidently and comfortably use the term in the stipulated sense. Others may try to do so because they're required to, but they will be frustrated in trying to use such a definition to develop and refine their own understanding, to internalize that understanding in a way that they can take away from the course. They will be playing someone else's game. Moreover, class conversation or engagement with text, issues, or one another using only the stipulative definition will be tone deaf to many of the levels or issues of religion that participants bring to the course. In that case, the study of religion or a particular tradition becomes an abstract word game devoid of personal investment. Such learning, I believe, impoverishes what can and should happen in the religious or theology classroom. So our second challenge is how to handle the issue of definition of religion or the religion understudy in ways that don't impede the students' genuine engagement with issues, the texts, and one another. Third, broadening our vision. Why study religion or any particular religion? Recognizing the diverse takes on the critical aspect of religion or a tradition brought by the participants in a class is already a significant pedagogical challenge, but the many layers or aspects of religion affects not only what the participants bring to the course, but what they will take away from it. The many ways in which our understandings of religion or a given religion will be internalized by them. To put the matter much too simply, in theology courses, we tend to assume that the learners need to understand their own tradition better in order to be able to interpret it to those in their own tradition to whom they will minister. In religious studies, we tend to assume that students need to understand religions or a given religion in order to read and comprehend what scientific scholars of religion write and say about it, or to be qualified to go on to do further academic study of religion in college and university. My statement of these goals ignore the significant diversity of understandings within a congregation, on the one hand, or in the academy, on the other. Members of any parish will all bring diverse takes on or pre-assumptions about what is critically important about their denomination to the parish. Learners not only deal with such diversity in the classroom, they deal with it in the world. Moreover, in many parishes today, given Wethno's research on how people choose churches in America today, any parish is likely to have many people who were not born, bred, and formed within that denomination. The complexity multiplies. On the academic side, as we discussed above, there's a long-standing and fierce academic debate about the nature and meaning of the study of religion, so there's no consensus there. But the issue is even more complex, for both statements significantly oversimplify the role of religion in contemporary culture. People discuss and engage religion not only within their self-chosen religious community or parish, but in many circumstances. They are likely to have religious diversity and difference in their nuclear or extended family. They will meet religious diversity in the workplace, in the neighborhood. Their children will meet religious diversity at school, and they will befriend children from other denominations or religions. Religious issues are likely to arise in local politics over how to handle Christmas decorations and a host of other matters, large and small. And as Stephen Prothero has reminded us, religious issues haunt and complexify a great many of the issues facing our nation and our world. Thus, I discuss religion in an Episcopalian way with people in my Episcopal parish, although given the significant differences in my parish, the rules and terms of those conversations differ from person to person. quite dramatically actually. Is Episcopalian an approach to biblical interpretation, or a theological heritage, an ecumenical approach, a commitment to certain forms of justice or hospitality, a sensibility about liturgy or music, and so forth and so on? In broader Anglican conversations, I'm challenged to delicately bridge the issues between the Episcopal Church in America and the global Anglican communion with its very different sensibilities. Moreover, Episcopalian in the San Francisco Bay Area and Episcopalian in Dallas or Southern Illinois are quite different. Then, like everyone, I have many close friends, relatives, and acquaintances from other denominations or who are interreligious or spiritual but not religious. So there are somewhat different rules and sensibilities when religion comes up with those folks. I'm asked to be aware of and alert to their attitudes and sensibilities and not too narrowly Episcopalian in my language, assumptions, or humor. Living in California, I have a number of Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, and Jewish friends, and the modes of conversation about religion and the appropriate vocabulary for it are different with them and require a willingness to have my basic frameworks and assumptions challenged or stretched. If I'm to relate successfully to friends from other religions, I have to be aware that Christians' assumptions about what religion is are not universal, and to learn to find more open-ended language that does not shut down conversations before they really begin. That's why we so often say never talk about religion or politics. In the larger socio-political realm, I'm always amazed by how often citizens lack even a basic grasp of the implications of religious diversity in our culture. This is captured in part for me by the fact that my stepfather, a Methodist clergy committed to being an open-minded and inclusive individual, posted a sign in his church protesting a court case to remove "under God" from the Pledge of Allegiance. It never occurred to him that for Buddhists, this statement posed a theological problem. He had learned some of the basics of Buddhism, but he didn't notice that a public affirmation of God failed to honor Buddhist sensibilities. If he had stopped to think about it, he would have considered how to reconcile his own commitment to his nation being under God with the sensibilities of Buddhist friends and colleagues. As Stephen Prothero has argued forcefully, there are myriads of examples when our public conversations about religion are muddied or made awkward by our lack of knowledge, and I would also say by a lack of skill in religiously plural discourse. So whether the students are theological students heading for ministry or students in a liberal arts classroom, their understanding of religion has more at stake than informed conversation within the boundaries of their self-chosen communities. They will have to discuss and engage people from many religious backgrounds on religious issues as they arise in their families, neighborhoods, schools, workplaces, communities, nation, and the world. If they are not prepared for such exchanges in our classrooms, where will it happen? Our courses and our teaching strategies will always be focused primarily on the learning outcomes mandated by our educational institutions, of our institutions and our departments, and shaped by the interests of a denomination or an academic guild. However, if we ignore that the understanding of religion a student gains in our courses and the religious conversations in which he will be engaged expand well beyond the narrow confines of a denomination or academic skill in religious studies, we will be doing both the student and the nature of our subject a serious disservice. We often defend the need for the study of religion and theology on the grounds of its broad significance, but we don't always follow up pedagogically to help our students engage that importance. How can we do better? My remarks have been intended to remind us that when we teach religion or a particular religion, there's not a simple unified object of learning, but rather many elephants in the room, often unnoticed dimensions of religion that need to be noticed, or they will unconsciously block the lines of vision and the learning conversations among our students. The elephants represented by various takes on or stakes in religion or a given religion brought by each of the students, and the elephants represented by the fact that religion, the student learns, will be engaged and discussed in many more contexts than the community that is the primary focus of the course. I would like now to take advantage of the considerable knowledge and experience in this room to imagine some strategies for addressing the three issues I've raised in the context of the courses we teach. I invite you to spend the next 10 minutes engaging a person next to you, or if you're sitting alone with no one around you, you can engage with yourself. And to think about the three questions, or the four questions that were in the handout that was in your packet. And you can pick one of these, or you can pick two, whatever interests you the most. The first is a classroom exercise to make students aware of their own and their colleagues' many different takes on what is centrally important about religion or Christianity or Judaism or Islam or whatever it is that you teach. What has shaped their sense of what is centrally important? The second one is a strategy for identifying or naming in the class discussions when different takes on religion or the religion you're talking about are confusing a conversation or an assignment, when people are talking at different levels and past each other. Third, a strategy for creating, refining, or updating a class's understanding of religion or of the particular religion you're studying. So as they go through the course, can they refine the definition to make it fuller or more adequate? And fourth, an exercise to help prepare students for the fact that they will be engaging in religious conversations and interactions beyond the confines of their specific religious community. So take the next 10 minutes or so to talk about this with yourself or with somebody else, and then we'll have some time to share if you have brilliant insights about that, or to raise issues or questions about anything I've said today. So take the next 10 minutes to share your wisdom.